Hello everybody, welcome to G4G here on YouTube. Today we are taking a look at Marvel Future Fight, and we are discussing the fact that Marvel Future Fight, not related to April Fool's Day, is saying that X-Men are coming to the game. So it is now official on the Mobarum forums that Cyclops and Storm have definitely been announced to the game in some way. Clearly these do seem to be playable characters with this many mutant skills being listed. I don't think they're going to be like bosses or rifts or anything like that. They clearly seem to intend for these guys to be playable characters. Now these models are unique in the sense that we have never seen these things exactly the way they are. However, they are very much, I find them kind of close to their 80s representation. I mean, Cyclops definitely is. Storm is a bit different. She's black colored in the suit instead of the silver. However, her portrait does really remind me of Enchantress. I mean, when you compare that Enchantress over here to that Storm, I mean, let's line that up right there. It's close. I mean, the hair definitely falls differently, but the face is quite similar. Also, I think the mask tends to make it look like they are similar also. But what does this mean for Marvel Future Fight? Well, first of all, everybody is thrilled. I have not seen one dissenting opinion on this yet. And it would be so nice to be in a game where mutants are new and fresh again. Now, Marvel Contest of Champions has been able to deal with mutants, as is Marvel Heroes. I do believe that they both tend to favor the MCU. However, they both still continue to dabble with mutants. Marvel Heroes somewhat recently had Beast. And Beast is definitely an X-Man. And he comes from the mutant side of things. But as you know from the legacy of Marvel Avengers Alliance, MAA hit a part where they just stopped dealing with mutants. And Cannonball, as a matter of fact, was the last mutant that we ever had in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Now, MAA is bordering on being a year dead now at this point. We're looking at the end of May, almost at the doorway to June over here, and it has been dead since September. I really do want to do... I'm very antsy to do a year without MAA video, and I almost like want it to be now so I can do the video. But then again, I don't want it to be September, and I don't actually want it to be a year without Marvel Avengers Alliance. Very sad. But to me, my favorite characters in the Marvel Universe have generally been on the mutant side. I mean, this game is doing a good job of pushing the MCU on me a little bit and making me enjoy it. I mean, there's a lot of characters I have a ton of fun on here. I mean, Yellowjacket is one of them. He's not always the most hardy character, but his damage is incredible. Songbird, I kind of liked. Ancient One with this uniform is enjoyable. Agent Venom has been growing on me. Kid Kaiju. Ulik, who is a failed experiment. You know, I have a soft spot for him because I really tried. But what does this mean for the future of Marvel Future Fight? No pun intended. What could we possibly see? Well, there is a potentially photoshopped, faded, or shadowed image that is going around that seems to be showing like Psylocke and Nightcrawler and Gambit and everything. What might we actually see from the X-Men universe? Well, obviously the possibilities overall and going into the future are nearly limitless. if they have the rights to deal with all of the, quote, X gene or mutant universe. If it is just specifically X-Men, well, we're getting Cyclops and Storm, likely Jean Grey, likely not Professor X. I mean, how are you really going to bring Professor X into an action game? If we did not get him in Marvel Avengers Alliance, other than an NPC, how can we really get him? I mean, yes, there are other Omega-level mutants that we've had to deal with. Iceman, Jean Grey, so on and so forth with those guys. But to me, Professor X, especially because of his mobility, has always represented something different. Would we see Legion cashing in on the show? Probably not. Again, another person I think would be hard to represent in the game, although the game does have some things that I bet he could do, like clones, enchantresses, disorient. I don't know what else we could really do from Legion. I do sort of feel a hole in my life with Legion being off the air now. I mean, that show was such a ridiculous acid trip. You did not know which way was up or your asshole from your elbow in that show. It was so screwy, but it was really good. And I normally hate Aubrey Plaza, and I think she was very, very good in that game. And of course, his girlfriend was quite attractive. But I think right off the gate, we will probably see Cyclops, Storm, Wolverine, Psylocke Nightcrawler, and potentially a native T2 and Jean Grey / Phoenix. Probably will not be the Jean Grey persona so much as it will be just raw Phoenix. Maybe a long cooldown skill converts her into Phoenix. And then down the road, we could probably deal with people like Jubilee. Maybe. I mean, there was so much clamor for Jubilee in Marvel Avengers Alliance, and a bigger role in Age of Apocalypse other than briefly being there as a mole rat. I think she's just a hard one to come up with 5 or 6 skills for. Granted, I don't know Jubilee that much other than the 80s cartoon where all she really did was pull down her sunglasses and shoot rainbow sprinkles at her ass. I know there's a vampire Jubilee in there, and some people have discussed that maybe she was coming to Marvel Avengers Alliance, never did. I think we could see Angel. Would we see Archangel? I don't think so. But I do believe we could definitely see Angel himself. Potentially with a lift-off move that gets him up in the air with some iframes. Maybe he can close his wings briefly for a shield. Potentially a Groot-style heal. Maybe a buff to stats if we want to grab some of what he did in Marvel Avengers Alliance and everything like that. Nightcrawler, we've got teleportation moves in the game already. He could probably have a couple physicals, maybe a physical with a bleed, like a whiff of brimstone one where he has a teleport. Maybe then a violent teleport move similar to I think Helia's got something like that. But, you know, a teleport move that would bounce Nightcrawler around the screen doing damage to random enemies. And then just a straight up teleport that gets him out of trouble. Jean Grey, Dark Phoenix, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that could be done there. I think you could easily get 5 or 6 skills there. Wolverine, he's had a history of so many abilities in so many games, even going back to the Marvel vs. Capcom games or the Xmen vs. Street Fighter games. You could probably give him a bunch of different slashes. The drill claw could come in there. potentially an uppercut. Maybe he stops for a few moments and regenerates somewhat like Zul'jin in Heroes of the Storm if you play that. Psylocke could have her bolts, her psi bolts. Potentially she could put up a psi shield. Invisibility, I don't know about that one. I mean, I think there's definitely a few things out there. Like Iceman, I think if Iceman ever shows up, we can definitely get a litany of abilities for Iceman. I mean, there's a very rich history, again, dating back to the Marvel versus Capcom games and Xmen versus Street Fighter. I mean, there's been some abilities that not even Marvel Avengers Alliance or Marvel Heroes tapped into, like his Ice Storm, potentially rolling an ice ball. If you remember the arcade games, he made like a giant round club out of ice and swung it. He could do a big, like, you know how Agent Venom in one of his abilities, he has that big black AoE where the symbiote comes out. You could have an Iceman version of that, except it's ice. And maybe the longer people stay in it, the more that they slow down and maybe even potentially freeze if they aren't stun immune. So I think if this hopefully goes the way that everybody is excited for it to go, we have a whole new world here in Marvel Future Fight. And it has taken almost a year from the death of Marvel Avengers Alliance for this kind of happiness to show up in the game. I mean, yeah, if you're dealing with the MCU, you probably really cannot deal with the X-Men universe like a lot of the games now. And it's really unfortunate because the people who suffer are us, the consumers of Marvel Grand Universe games. And there are so many plots that we just can't delve into if we don't have the entire universe at our fingertips. Potentially, we could see grand bosses like Apocalypse show up as world bosses, the way we have the Black Order. Maybe the Black Order would either get replaced or potentially, the way we have two sets of specials now, we have the New Avengers and the Inhumans. Maybe there could be other world bosses that feature some of the very large evildoers in the X-Men universe. I mean, you've got, obviously, Apocalypse. That just jumps off the page over there. Maybe even Mr. Sinister. That's two that jump right off the page at me. Are we going to get the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so out of the Black Order? Potentially. I'd have to do a little more research and think, but like Apocalypse and Mr. Sinister just jump off the page at me. Galactus, but then again, you have to think of that all of these Black Order became playable characters. They can't be ridiculous. I mean, Galactus, if you remember from the Marvel Avengers Alliance, April Fool's joke of Galactus's foot is coming to Marvel Avengers Alliance. Ego, I don't know if Ego falls in the X-Men universe. I mean, the dude was a living planet. I mean, I think there's a few characters you could tap that I doubt would be playable. But if the precedence is that you earn your way through the Black Order and they become characters for you, then you have to deal with villains that are feasible to be in your control. And Apocalypse, I think, could do that. Mr. Sinister, I think, could do that. I don't know what else. Magneto, I guess you could throw Magneto in there, but I just don't think of him as hugely on the level as, like, a Thanos or an Apocalypse. I mean, even Mr. Sinister is, you guys could probably come up with way bigger Black Order level X-Men universe villains uh, than me. I mean, maybe even like Dark Phoenix, the evil version of Phoenix, could be like a Black Order, or I don't know. I think back to the Phoenix Saga and Guardian, maybe? Guardian could be... I mean, we have Corvus and Black Dwarf. I could imagine Guardian being on the level of these guys. Um, Juggernaut. But then, he doesn't... Like, all these guys fit with the theme. I don't know. I don't know what theme we could come up with here. I could think of randoms that could fit the bill. I mean, Juggernaut you could very easily put on the level of Black Dwarf, just minus the bleeds. But there is just clearly infinite possibilities. Potential, I mean, we could fit a third special right here, and the third special could be a way of earning some of the X-Men. Would we get a brand new chapter, like a chapter 13 that has X-Men? Possibly. We could do like a Storm, Cyclops, Wolverine. Rogue, I want to say Rogue seems obvious because she's just been so tied to the X-Men in the 80s comics, or the 80s cartoons, in the movies, in so many of them, in the extra footage from Days of Future Past and everything, the Rogue cut. But how do you come up with 5 or 6 abilities from her? I mean, even like Marvel Heroes does it so good with Rogue in that she steals and stores abilities from characters she comes into contact, and she brings them back at will. The way, like, so you go grab a Magneto, you go grab a Juggernaut, you now have Magneto Juggernaut abilities. It's what I wanted of Rogue in Marvel Avengers Alliance. She still was an absolute beast for a long time. She just wasn't the Rogue that I wanted. Could we have Colossus? Could we have Magic? I would love to have Magic. I would love to have Guillotine from Marvel Contest of Champions. I love that character. But in the context of Contest of Champions, because she has extra range on the sword, I don't know what universe she technically belongs to. I would just like to see her in something other than MCC, because she's probably my favorite character in MCC. Cable jumps off the page as a certain possibility. I mean, maybe they could do some of the alternate universes where some of the really good people are bad. I don't think we would necessarily see a Fantastic Four that's something completely different. But, I mean, definitely I would see Storm, Cyclops, Wolverine. That's got to be a 3 that are guaranteed. Would we see 5 or 6 on release and they go for the classics of then rounding it out with Nightcrawler and Jean Grey? Possibly. But then I think that shuns Psylocke, who really deserves to be there. There's discussion of, you know, whether or not we're going to get Deadpool, who is not exactly an X-Man, but sort of. Colossus, I mean, Colossus is an utter classic X-Man. What might we see from him and his abilities? Perhaps like a bull run forward, somewhat like a Juggernaut charge. He has a passive where he gets hit and he armors up and takes less damage for like 10 seconds, and it's like down for 20, so it's up for 10, then down for 10 while it recharges. Maybe like a ground pound attack, or he jumps up in the air and he lands with a smash or something. We do deal with villains. I mean, we don't necessarily just have to think of the good guys out of the X-Men. We certainly could be dealing with the villains of it all. I mean, we have Maximus over here. We have Red Skull. We've got people that we can tap as villains. So we could see a Juggernaut in there. We could see potentially a Guardian or, you know, Magneto. Like, Magneto, you know, has got to come somewhere in the beginning. Maybe Magneto will be a paywall as a villain, and you get to use him on villain days. What classes might we see? Well, Wolverine strikes me as combat. Jean Grey, I would imagine, would be Blast. Speed could be Nightcrawler, could be Psylocke in there for Speed. If we did see a Jubilee, probably her. Rogue, borderline Speed combat. I could kind of see either way there. Maybe more likely combat than, say, the raw agility of like a Speed Spider-Man. I feel like I'm shorting Storm would probably be a blaster. That seems pretty obvious over there. If we ever got Magic, maybe Universal for Magic. Just because in Contest of Champions, Mystical is purple. Here, you've got a lot of Magic users that are purple and Universal and everything. So, you know, with Destroyer being a mystical construct and everything, that's maybe where Magic would be. I think Colossus would be combat. Magneto, Blast, most likely. Cable is a good one. Cable, I sort of think of like a Deathlock kind of model. Or Crossbones. So I would think Cable would probably be combat, although you could certainly make a very good case for him to be base, for him to be over on the speed side as like a base. Or not speed, excuse me, blast. Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, would we ever see those? That could be interesting because of the fact that the MCU and the X-Men universe have been jockeying over those two, and they're mutants, but no, really, they're not. Now they're augmented humans, and Scarlet Witch, Blast, potentially Universal, Quicksilver, clearly Speed, if we ever got him. Beast, maybe Speed, maybe Combat, just not Blast. Yeah, Beast is another one. Where can we fit Beast in all this? I mean, he played a part in several of the movies. He was around in the 80s cartoon. Gambit. So Gambit was one of the ones in the shadowed, quote-unquote, photoshopped picture. Could Gambit play a role in things? Combat or Universal for him? You could make a case for Blast because of his penchant for ranged abilities, throwing cards and everything like that. But I would want to say out of the gate, combat because of the bow staff and a lot of physical attacks with maybe some ranged mixed in there, but more likely leaning towards combat. And then, you know, obviously with uniforms, we have a plethora of realms that we can go to for uniforms. I mean, you could wind up with how we had all new, all different, or ANED. You could probably wind up with X-Force X-Force costumes in there, and changing people over to that. I mean, X-Force is tried and true. We've had X-Force all over the place, including Marvel Avengers Alliance, where, you know, Archangel got tied to it slightly, but then there was Psylocke and Wolverine. You could throw Nightcrawler in there. I mean, we could probably sit here and just talk for days straight about where the game could potentially go. Could we see a storyline of Avengers versus X-Men like Marvel Avengers Alliance did? Certainly a possibility, if hopefully one side does not get portrayed as you know, evil and everything like that. Emma Frost, you know, she's obviously been tied very heavily to the X-Men universe, especially the movies, and, you know, shading over and dating Cyclops and everything like that. Iceman, I mean, certainly a possibility. He's Omega level, but he's not, I don't think, ridiculously overpowered. Um, Maybe that could be their world bosses, quote unquote, when we get X-Men. Maybe it's just all the Omega level mutants, other than Professor X. Like, anybody good or bad might show up as an Omega level, and then that's who we earn through, like, the Black Order and everything. It's, I don't know. And then you have some lesser ones that we have sort of forgotten along the way, like Strife, Xman himself. I mean, there's a lot of Omega levels they could tap. Maybe they would even get into Cannonballs and everything like that. I mean, Cannonball's model in Marvel Avengers Alliance, I could see very easily fitting in this game and his abilities. Could we see some of the Runaways? I mean, let's face it, we have Sister Grimm, who's really Nico. Nico hung out with mutants like Molly Hayes. God, would I love Molly Hayes in this game. Maybe that could be showing up on the special. I mean, if the new Avengers could get their own special, clearly the Runaways could very easily fit in and get a special. Get Chase Stein, get Gertrude, get Molly. They don't treat uniforms in this game the way Marvel Avengers Alliance did, so I don't think you could get a Nico costume for, you know, for Sister Grimm the way Marvel Avengers Alliance did that. Like, here's Iron Fist, here's a chapter to get Heroic Age Iron Fist, or HAIF. I don't think we would see that, but maybe she just would get a costume for purchase, and we would just be dealing with other of the Runaways. Who knows? I mean, like I said, not to quote ZomboCon, but the possibilities are infinite at X-Men Con. We just really don't know what they're going to do, but it's so out of the blue to see this, and it's so amazing, and it has made everybody that I know of happy. And that's at least from seeing a little bit of the Moby Room forums, which I'm never at unless I get linked. I haven't been over to Reddit yet, but in the Adamantium process groups that I'm part of, there is just thrilled. Everybody is doing the Fry meme of take my money. People are already talking about saving up everything they can for whatever X-Men drops. Now, hopefully, they temper things a bit. As much as it would be great to get 5 or 6 X-Men right at the beginning, that's going to be a lot of resources flying out of your pocket and your wallet. Hopefully, they kind of chill out and take it a little easy. Like, I know, hear me out. You're probably like, dude, why don't we want fucking full power Christmas? Why do we want a half Christmas here? If we get 3 right at the beginning and we can slowly digest them, it would be better. Think of how nice it would be to have like 3 weeks, 4 weeks of savoring the first 2 or 3 that come out. And getting them buffed up, getting ISOs on them, getting Uru on them, getting them T2'd if they're T2 worthable, testing them out in Shadowlands and world bosses and alliance battles and conquest and everything like that. The game has so much to do right now. When we load up this game, we literally walk in on the ground floor of a Vegas casino. You've got roulette tables this way, blackjack tables this way, you've got poker over here, you've got baccarat over there, you've got the slot machines over there. I mean, you've got boxing to go bet on in the middle of it. I mean, there's so much. We need to know where these X-Men are going to fit, where they're going to be good. And if they give us just plop 5 or 6 right at the start, I think it might be just a little overwhelming, because people are going to be so happy for it. You know, we got the Inhumans and everything. It's like, okay, we got Inhumans. These 1 or 2 are good. The rest, eh. We got Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like, ooh, okay, so there's a good 1 or 2 over here. It's like, it was tempered with expectation. This is so unexpected and so happy-inducing. I think we might just all go apeshit and, like, swallow everything whole. And that's where hopefully it doesn't happen. I'm not trying to sound like Debbie Downer. I'm just trying to sound like even Steven here, you know, keeping a nice, cool head and enjoying the first few characters that we get without being like, man, I don't know what to do. I want to work on all 6 of these because they're all fucking awesome. And, you know, and we don't want them to give us 6 and have them not all be awesome in the beginning. Like, well, we don't want to give them 6 amazing characters that make them forget about the entire rest of the game. Like, 6 Enchantress level people, 6 Agent Venom level people. The power creep is going to be god-awful. I mean, it's just going to shit all over everybody else. And we don't want them to give us, like, 3 amazing people and 3 hot turds. But if they give us 3 in the first clump and they are all amazing, it's just a little bit easier to swallow. I mean, do you want to eat a 7-course meal at once when everything is amazing? Or do you want to start off with a good appetizer and take a break and then go on to a nice main course and take a little bit of a break? And here's an amazing cup of coffee and here's a good dessert, you know. So hopefully it's just nice and calm. We'll see. June is going to be very interesting, and there is, of course, a lot of things we can be talking about. We certainly will revisit this topic as more information comes available and they start coming out. So, coming up on the channel, I do want to deal with some stuff in DC Legends. There's a lot of stuff to talk about there now that we have alliances and everything like that. Injustice 2 Mobile. I definitely want to talk about Injustice 2 Mobile and highlight that game a little bit. And even Transformers Forged to Fight, which is basically Marvel Contest of Champions with Transformers. But I think I've already done a video on that game already. I have to double check. So, thanks guys. Thanks for listening. Let me know down below what you think might be coming. Who's your prediction for the characters? Who might be a special? Who might be maybe a rift? Who might be a world, like a Black Order level boss? Like, who are the villains that could be Black Order level people? Would Apocalypse be playable as a character? I think if Thanos is, Apocalypse can be. And clearly not movie Apocalypse. I'm talking about blue fucking Edward Scissorhands Apocalypse. Is Mr. Sinister? Am I way off base in thinking Mr. Sinister could be of that level? Are there any themed evildoers out there like the Black Order, like a giant group of 4 or 5 themed baddies that could all do stuff? The Brotherhood of, maybe the Brotherhood of mutants or something, like Magneto and Psylocke, excuse me, Mystique and Toad. You know, pulling some of the ones from the first movie. Sabretooth, I don't know. I don't think, maybe it's because the Black Order is just so cosmic and everything, but it's going to be interesting. Will we get a chapter? Will we get specials? Will we get rifts? Will we get world bosses? All remains to be seen. Will anybody be as powerful as a Dormammu Ding Dong and a Doctor Strange and New Uniform Sharog? It's another one we have to consider. So, take care, everybody. Let me know what you think down below. Peace out.